This drop zone was forgotten. It existed as a ghost in the archives, a set of coordinates tied to a designation that had long since been retired. In the grand cartography of our expansion, it was a footnote, a sector deemed geologically inert and strategically insignificant decades ago. The official designation was DZ-734, but no one had called it that in years. To the system, and to us, it was simply a blank space on the map, one of thousands of such places across the frontier, pockets of audited emptiness, catalogued and dismissed. Our task was procedural, a routine system-wide integrity check. We were sweeping the dust from the forgotten corners of the database, ensuring the records matched the reality. And the reality of this place, according to every metric we had, was absolute nothingness. A cold, silent expanse of rock and dust, untouched by progress, unburdened by history. It was a place that time and ambition had left behind. No activity. The logs confirmed it. We cross-referenced every available spectrum. No recent transponder pings. No unauthorized landings or departures. The orbital traffic logs showed a complete void. Not even a low-orbit satellite had adjusted its trajectory over this sector in the last 50 cycles. We checked atmospheric particulate counts for engine residue. Nothing. We ran seismic resonance checks for signs of recent drilling or construction. The ground was still, locked in a geological slumber that had been undisturbed for millennia. It wasn't just quiet, it was unnaturally still, a statistical anomaly of pure, unadulterated silence. The kind of silence that feels less like an absence of sound and more like a presence of its own. It was a perfect vacuum of history, a place that had been so thoroughly ignored it had almost achieved a state of non-existence. No records. The void extended into the digital realm. We queried the central archives, the deep storage vaults where every action, every survey, every single deployment is meant to be permanently etched. The system returned a null set. No geological surveys beyond the initial cursory pass that had dismissed it. No resource claims, no infrastructure proposals, no personnel ever assigned. It was a digital black hole, a place that, according to the infallible memory of the network, had never truly been interacted with. It was one thing for a place to be abandoned. It is another for it to appear as if it never was. This level of emptiness was not standard. Even the most desolate sectors have echoes, failed survey attempts, automated weather drone flybys, speculative mining claims that went nowhere. This place had nothing. It was a clean slate. Too clean. No reason to scan. Protocol was clear. In the absence of any anomalous readings, any historical flags, or any operational directives, a deep-level scan was an unnecessary expenditure of resources. The preliminary sweep had already confirmed the surface was stable, and the atmospheric conditions were nominal. Every indicator on our console glowed a placid, reassuring green. The checklist was complete. The box was ticked. Our directive was to observe, confirm inactivity, and move on to the next set of forgotten coordinates. To initiate a full-spectrum ground-penetrating scan would be to deviate from that protocol. It would be an act of curiosity, and curiosity is not a variable accounted for in our directives. The system is built on efficiency, on the cold logic of data. And the data said, look away. There is nothing to see here, until we did. Perhaps it was the perfection of the silence, the sheer absolute totality of the void. It felt less like a natural state and more like a carefully constructed one. A performance of emptiness, a deviation from protocol, a single command, a quiet defiance of the data. We initiated the scan, a single pulse sent into the earth, a question asked of the silence. We expected nothing. The system predicted nothing. The hum of the scanner was the only sound, a low thrum of energy pouring into the ground, searching for echoes in a place that had none. For a moment, the return feed was flat. A perfect, unbroken line. The ground was as empty as the records claimed. The protocol was right. Our curiosity was unfounded, and the ground answered. It was a whisper, a single faint return pulse from deep beneath the surface, a tiny, almost imperceptible deviation on the spectral analysis display. An echo where no echo should be. It was not geological. The signature was too clean, the reflection too sharp. It was artificial. The system, which moments before had assured us of absolute emptiness, now flooded our console with alerts. The placid green indicators flashed a sudden, urgent red. The silence was broken. The void was not a void. Something was down there. Something that had been waiting in the dark, wrapped in a blanket of carefully curated nothingness. The ground had a secret, and we had just stumbled upon it. Same coordinates. We recalibrated the system, thinking it was a ghost in the machine, a sensor echo, or a processing error. We ran a diagnostic on the scanner array. All systems nominal. We purged the cache and reinitiated the scan, focusing the beam on the precise coordinates of the return signal. The result was instantaneous and identical. The same depth, the same location, down to the millimeter. The same sharp artificial signature. It wasn't an error. It was real. It was stable. It was there. The coordinates were now locked in our system, a permanent marker in a place that was supposed to be a featureless blank. The machine was now fixated, its attention drawn to this single point of impossibility. Same pattern. We widened the scan, painting the surrounding area with energy, trying to contextualize the anomaly. We were searching for other signatures, for a debris field, for any geological feature that might explain the reading. But there was nothing else. Just this single, isolated object. We ran a pattern analysis on the return signal, breaking down the waveform. The result was chilling in its precision. The pattern was not random. It was complex, structured, and perfectly repeatable. It was a signature, a fingerprint. It spoke of design, of intention. This was not wreckage. It was not a lost piece of equipment. The pattern was too deliberate. It was a marker, a beacon, or something else entirely. Something placed with purpose, buried, not erased. The high-resolution deep scan confirmed it. We rendered a three-dimensional model from the echo data, stripping away the virtual layers of rock and sediment. And there it was. Not an object, but a space, a structure, clean lines, perfect right angles, a chamber, a vault, a facility of some kind, excavated and constructed with geometric precision. It was vast, far larger than the initial signal had suggested. It had been deliberately buried, concealed under hundreds of meters of solid rock. The surface above had been carefully restored, leaving no trace, no scar. This was not an act of abandonment. This was an act of concealment, a meticulous, systematic effort to make something disappear not just from sight, but from memory, to bury it so deep that no one would ever think to look. Someone used this. The architecture was unmistakable. The dimensions, the structural supports, the layout, it conformed to early-phase colonial expansion protocols. It was one of ours, a standard subterranean installation, the kind used for long-term research, secure storage, or as a hardened command bunker. But it wasn't on any schematic. It didn't exist in any construction database or infrastructure index. It was a ghost facility, built with our technology, our methods, but completely off the books. Someone with access to restricted construction assets and significant resources had built a secret deep beneath a world that was supposed to be empty. They had used official means to create an unofficial place and never reported it. This was the true anomaly. The construction of such a facility would have generated thousands of data points, logistical chains, personnel manifests, resource allocation requests, security clearances. A project of this scale leaves a footprint. It cannot simply happen. We initiated a deep archival search, using the structure's unique architectural signature as a key. We cross-referenced it against every classified, restricted, and sealed project file dating back to the first expansion. The system worked for hours, sifting through petabytes of encrypted data. The result was the same. No matches, no records, no reports. It was as if the facility had willed itself into existence. But we knew that was impossible. The absence of evidence was not evidence of absence. It was evidence of a cover-up. A purge. Someone hadn't just buried a facility. They had meticulously erased every single record of its existence. So we marked it. The directive was no longer about procedural checks. This was now an active investigation. We placed a temporary digital marker on the location, a flag visible only to our clearance level. It was a quiet claim, a pin dropped in a sea of secrets. The initial protocol was broken, and what we had found was a thread that, when pulled, could unravel a history that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to bury. The forgotten drop zone was no longer forgotten. It was now the center of our attention. We had a location, we had a structure, and we had a question that was far more important than what the structure was. The question was why? Why was it hidden? And who had the power to make it disappear so completely? The investigation had just begun.